Morning. Nice to see all of you. So I'm going to ask, how many of you already set up your Christmas tree? Like you just went full Christmas already. Has this happened in this room? Awesome. Man, such a difference between the 11 o'clock service and the 9:15. At 9:15, like hands went up all over the place. I have retail trauma, so I hold out as long as I can on jumping into the Christmas season. Well done, friends. How many of you are fully aware that it is less than 2 weeks until Thanksgiving? Yeah, you're excited for it. That's awesome. I'm glad that some of you are excited. I think it's weird. I think it's weird that Thanksgiving is just less than 2 weeks away. I'm gonna be really honest with you. To me, this year, it doesn't feel like Thanksgiving's happening yet, or like I'm even ready for it. And what's even weirder is I recognized I was gonna be teaching today, so I said to a group of people, I'm gonna teach on gratitude, because we're really close to the time of year where we all pause to do that. And everyone's face contorted, like they were in pain for a moment, and they looked at me as if to say, like, why would you do that? And I saw their expressions, and it's one that I'm really familiar with. Like I know this reaction from people, and it's because I'm married to somebody who's really reflective when it comes to life, oftentimes reflects on their own life, reflects on just their day and their year and all these different things. I'll give you a heads up. If you ever attend Thanksgiving at our house, like if you're ever a part of Thanksgiving with us, a moment's gonna happen. My wife, Amber, is gonna look at you, and this isn't like a hypothetical. She's fully gonna expect you to answer this question. She's gonna look at you and say, so if you reflect on this last year, what is it that you find yourself most thankful for? She's gonna ask you that. She's probably gonna follow it up with this other question, because she asks this one all the time too on Thanksgivings, and what are you most hopeful for in the year to come? So what happens whenever she asks this is there's generally a group of people, and like the room gets split immediately. Half the people in the room all of a sudden start thinking, where that you can see it on their faces, they're like, oh, I love that question. And they start pondering their year and all the things like, what am I most thankful for? That's a really good question, and thinking through this. And then there's another group of people whose face contorts and who looks around like, are we really gonna do this right now? And if we weren't the ones hosting, they would totally be looking like, who invited her? Like, why is this happening? I'm serious. I see this every single year. Why is this moment happening? And then what happens is they realize, oh, this is really going to occur. And 9 times out of 10, their response is the following. I think I'm just most thankful that this year is almost over. That's almost always it. And I expect that response a lot. I think that's the same face that I saw when I told people I was going to be talking on gratitude. I'm familiar with it. I've seen this a lot. Because it's a weird year. For many of us, this hasn't felt like a year. This has felt like a decade, right? Like that's what I keep hearing is, man, do you remember the decade that is 2020? Like this, it just feels really long. I mean, think about all that we've journeyed through. We have journeyed through forest fires, pandemic still in the midst of it, increased racial tensions, economic uncertainty, and one of the most tense political climates that we've had in recent history. It has been a year, friends. There's been some things that have happened, and there are some tensions and things that go with it. And here's my guess, based off of me mentioning that I'd like to talk about gratitude in the last week. If I were to ask many of you in this room right now what you're most grateful for at this point in the year 2020, I'm gonna guess that for many of you, your very honest response is that it's almost over. And that's not bad. There's no shame in that. Like, that's very honest. I think that's where a lot of us are at. I mean, think about how many of you find yourselves just ready to put this year behind you and step into 2021, just to take a step somehow. How many of you feel like you've been running an endurance race and like you keep looking up for sight at the finish line and you just keep wondering like, okay, how much longer do I have to run? Like, how much longer is this thing that I'm doing right now? How many of you find yourself frustrated with life, with others, with policy and politics, or with work, or with trying to do school with kids in crazy different ways, or friendships, or just things in your own personal life? And the honest truth is, you hear that I want to talk about gratitude today, and there's a part of you that's like, that's really beautiful. Gratitude's a beautiful thing, but if I'm honest about my own life, it just feels like it's a million miles away. It just doesn't feel like I'm close to it right now. Or like that's a hard thing to wrap my head around. If that's you, you're in good company, I promise you, in this room. Me too. This has been a crazy year. It has. It's a weird year to be trying to lead here as part of a church. You know, in a year where we've shut down services, navigating pandemic and politics and all kinds of crazy, weird stuff. That it's been a crazy year in that regard. It's been a weird year to be a parent and trying to figure out how to educate kids and keep them motivated, and how everything's affecting different people, all that, like different people and kids and climate and all of this. It's been a weird year for me personally. There's my wife in the last several months here has suddenly like developed weird kind of medical conditions and chronic pain that we're still trying to figure out. And it's been really hard. It's been a lot. There's a part of me that very honestly could look at 2020 and go, I don't know if I'm ready for Thanksgiving to happen. I know it's 2 weeks away, but I don't know if I'm ready for that to come here as well. And gratitude seems like a hard thing right now. But I also think, and in total honesty here, I also think the crazy thing is, it's partly because this year's been so crazy. It's partly because there's all this complexity that's actually so important that we talk about gratitude right now. It's despite all of this. It's amidst all of it. It's with all of the complexity. It's with all of that weirdness. It's because it feels so far away that it's so important that we actually take a moment to go, let's actually talk about this here today. And it's because of this truth. Gratitude isn't just something, and I want us to catch this today. Gratitude isn't just something that's like, go do that so that you can be a better person. So just do better, please. Be grateful. Turn that frown upside down. Say God is good all the time and just like ignore the hard things. It's not that. If you feel that or think we're going there, we're not. I can't tell you how many sermons I've sat through where it's like, so God wants you to be grateful, so be grateful. And I'm like, thank you, that was helpful. I don't know what to do with that. There's a part of this where what I want you to see today is not to feel weight and shame or like you need to somehow be better. I want you to open your eyes to the fact that gratitude is actually a gift for you. Not just for the person you're expressing it to, not just as a worship moment to God, that God has created you in such a way and created gratitude in such a way that it's actually this profound gift to you that reaches into you. Gratitude has this amazing way of opening us up in the places that we feel closed. It has this amazing way of like being, I refer to it like salve for our soul, like medicine for our well-being. There's a part of gratitude that literally softens us and opens us back up to the goodness and the beauty that is God in our lives. And it's so hard to find in any other way. It's huge, friends. It's an absolute gift, and I hope you see it. Here's the truth. And with less than 2 weeks, Thanksgiving is going to make its way to you. My hope for you this morning, though, is that in some way, shape, or form, you might make the choice to start making your way towards it. That you'd find that gift that is gratitude, and that it would do beautiful things in your heart and in your life, because that's really the desire here, friends. So to talk about this, to do this, we're going to look at Leviticus chapter 23. I know it's weird to be like, on a day we're going to talk about gratitude, turn to the law in Leviticus, but that's where we're going here. And it's because God's doing something really unique in this passage and really unique in this moment in history that he starts to detail. So let me give you just a little bit of background here. God delivers this, right? Leviticus 23, Moses is delivering the law to the people. God gave Moses the law. At this particular moment in the law, he's laying out the calendar of the year, how he wants the Jewish people to walk through their year. And this isn't arbitrary. This isn't just like, so do this then, and then when you get here, do this. It's also not like a list of Hallmark holidays. We're like, it'd be good to celebrate there, try that. It's really with great purpose and meaning and intention. God's saying, I want you to organize your life in this way. I want you to structure your year in this way because there's something really beautiful and powerful for you here. And he details out what that looks like. When you get to the end of Leviticus chapter 23, which is where we're going to be here today, God tells them about the Feast of Booths. It's one particular feast. It's called the Feast of Booths. In Judaism, it's referred to as Sukkot. And it's really, really an important feast. It all centers around this idea of gratitude. And so I want to look at this with you today. Let's read Leviticus chapter 23, verse 39 through 43. And I'm going to give you a heads up. There's a lot of detail and a lot of jargon here, but I promise we're going to unpack it so that it makes sense as we go. It says this, on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you've gathered in the produce of the land, meaning the harvest, right? When you've reaped your harvest, you shall celebrate the feast of the Lord, 7 days. And on the first day shall be a solemn rest. And on the 8th day shall be a solemn rest. So 2 Sabbath rests between these things. And you shall take on the first day the fruit of splendid trees, branches of palm trees and boughs of leafy trees and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a feast of the Lord for 7 days in the year. It is a statute forever throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. You will live in them. That's what that says. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the people of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Now, at first pass, for those of you that hate camping, this sounds like the worst festival ever. If that's you, It's different, I promise. This is a little bit different. So I want you to see this. Let's summarize essentially what's going on here, what we just read. So God tells them, when the harvest has been gathered, right? When all of your crops and all of your bounty and all of that has been collected, I want you to celebrate this feast at this time each year. It's going to begin with 1 day of Sabbath rest, right? Because there was a Sabbath once a week. So we're going to honor that. And there's going to be a Sabbath at the end of this once a week. So we're going to honor that. But in those days in between, I want it to be a full-on week-long feast, a full-on celebration where you and the people of Israel, all of us, live in tents. Live in these makeshift booths. And he's not just making these up like they hadn't thought of this. During the harvest itself, people set up booths out in the field. And it was because all the crops were ripe. And so they were worried somebody might come and steal, or an animal might come, or something might happen. And so it was like a guard stand where people kept watch. They knew what these things were. So what God's instructing them to do is take that booth, that weird thing, out there, and I want you all to live in that thing. I want you to spend your week in that thing. And I want it to be a party. I want you to celebrate. I want you to rejoice. Why? We see it at the end of the passage. Because I want you to, 1, reflect on the bounty of whatever harvest is there, but 2, I want you to reflect on the 40 years that you wandered in the desert and the way that I provided and was there and was with you the entire time. For I am the Lord, your God. This is striking. When God gives them this feast, when he tells them, I want you to do this every year, forever, every year, he knows what their years are going to look like, friends. He's saying, I want you to celebrate and find the gratitude of all the goodness and all the things that I've done, and I want you to pull that back into your present and revel with people, not just by yourself, with family members, with people, with friends, include them, and I want you to celebrate on this. And he does this at a time when they're in the midst of wandering in the wilderness and had been for 40 years. This is how the total amount of wandering that's there. They haven't entered the promised land when he gives the law. They've been out there a long time. If you think your 2020 is rough, I want you to imagine that it started in 1980 and is still going. And this is the moment when God's like, so when you reap the harvest once a year, every year, I want you to remember all the good and all the amazing things that I have done for you and the ways that I provided and the ways that I fed. And I want you to celebrate that like an institution, not for a day, not for a moment, but for a solid week every single year. This is the Feast of Booths. This is what they do. At the core of the Feast of Booths, at its core, it's a feast of gratitude. It is a feast where the people collectively practice this moment where they reflect on all of the goodness of God and all that he's done, and they find themselves grateful for what God has given them, and so they celebrate with one another. And that brings me to the main point that I just want to make here this morning, and it's this. Gratitude is something we have to practice. It's a practice. Gratitude itself, it's not a character trait. It's not a personality type. Gratitude at its core is something that's actually there for us to practice. We have to practice it. Think of this. There's a reason that God made this a permanent festival as part of people's calendar every year so that they would orient their lives to it. Every single year, there's this thing where it's like, I want you to do that. And I want it to be a week long. I don't want it to just be a moment. I don't want it to be just hey, you remember all the good stuff? And you're like, oh yeah, God is really good. Continuing on with my day now. I actually want you to orient your life to it and to practice this thing. And how amazing is it, the wisdom of God. I think God also knows that if we were simply to try to practice gratitude, if that was all it was, for a week, go practice gratitude, we'd get lost. We'd do it okay, but we'd kind of just slip back into, but life looks this way and this is what I'm actually about. And yet in the wisdom of God, what he does here is, what's he say? No, I want you to pause from the way you've been living. You're not going to live in your house that week. That means life's going to look totally different. This is like a giant interruption to your day-to-day living. And you're going to build a makeshift shelter, and you're going to live in that, and you're going to feast in it, and it's for your friends, family, neighbors, and you, everybody. This didn't occur within the temple. This occurred in your home. This occurred in your yard. This occurred on the roadside on the way to Jerusalem. This occurred wherever you were, for the community, for you, for everybody else. No, pause your life, stop what you're doing, and actually enter into this week-long celebration, this week-long practice of gratitude. And he built it into the calendar every single year. I think he did this because he knew that there were going to be years where the harvest was good, and he knew there were going to be years where the harvest wasn't good. He knew there were going to be years where it's like, gratitude, it's super easy. Here's all the things I'm thankful for. And he knew that there were going to be years where it's like, but there's not much food, and it hasn't rained in a long time, and I don't know what we're going to do. And yet the practice was still relevant then, every year for generation to generation. Do you realize that when God's telling them this, he knows every battle that they will fight? That when God is telling them this, he knows what years will be good harvests and bad harvests. Do you realize that when he's telling them this, he knows that by the time of Christ, they'll be under Roman occupation, so frustrated with their government, so frustrated with their surroundings and how that's impacting their own lives? Do you realize that when he's telling them this, he is fully aware that one day there will be a Holocaust? In the good, in the bad, in the tensions, in the struggles, he's saying, but this practice of gratitude is really important. I want you to make it a part of your year, a part of your life, part of your togetherness, and I want you to celebrate it. It's a big deal. You know, I used to think that gratitude was actually a personality thing, like a character trait. Because there's some people that I've met, you've met them too, where you're just like, they are really grateful. They're real happy or something. And I would just say they're just overly positive. This is one of the things that drew me to my wife. I love this about her. She's very positive. And there's a part of it where if you've encountered her for more than like 5 to 10 minutes, she probably said something about you she was grateful or thankful for. And I watch her do this and it opens people up. Like I just watch the way that it blesses them and it's this incredible thing. And I always found that to be this really attractive quality about her. And I was like, I'm glad God made her that way. You know, she's got this amazing personality. And then I would think, and then there's me. And I'm positive, but I'm also like kind of a realist. Sometimes life is just junk. And that's how it is. And sometimes you put your head down and you just kind of make your way through it. And here we are. You know what I mean? Like it's good, but also like that's a thing. And I just thought it's a personality type. But here's the thing. After 15 years of being married, I think I'm learning something so different from my wife that's opening up my eyes to the beauty of this passage. Here's something that my wife Amber does every single night before she goes to bed. And she has every day from the moment we've been married, which means she probably did it before that as well. She lays down, her head hits the pillow, and then she like stares off into the distance someplace. Like she zones out. And in that moment, I know that she's pondering her day and she's actually thinking through like, what was most meaningful about my day? What was most difficult? And then the last question, what am I most grateful for? And then the last thing she does is, and then what complexities will I face tomorrow? She does this every single day for years. And you know what occurs to me? The entire time we've been married, I've been watching her nightly practice gratitude. Watching her every night take in, and what am I most thankful for today? And what am I appreciative of? And what do I need to pause and make recognition of that I want to call into the forefront of my mind? So is it any wonder that all day I see her actually express gratitude or live that out? For me, it makes sense. She practices it a ton. And I'm starting to realize this isn't just a personality type. This isn't just a character trait. This isn't just about like, well, there's some of us that are good and some of us that aren't. No, it's not that at all. And I hope this is an encouragement to you. Do not hear this as me saying, so everybody else do better. What I'm trying to say is if you feel like in your own life, like gratitude is really far away from you, what I'm trying to get at is that gift is there for you too. If you feel like for you it's really difficult and it's just not how you're wired and it's like a leap to even get there, what I'm trying to get at for you is that don't write yourself off. Don't limit yourself. There's a part of that thing that's actually there for you too. It's a practice. And I promise you, the more you practice this thing, the more you begin to reap the benefit. Gratitude actually does some really, really beautiful things in our hearts and in our lives. It's incredible, friends. In moments of hopelessness and in situations that are really difficult, gratitude actually becomes like a powerful thing in our hearts and in our lives. And I want to spend the rest of our morning talking about that. I want to point to two things that gratitude actually does here. And here's the first. Gratitude makes us aware of the grace of God. See, if we're going to even endeavor to practice gratitude, we should know that like this is doing something good, not just to arbitrarily be a better person, right? Here's what this does. Here's what this works out in us. Gratitude makes us aware or more aware of the grace of God. Leviticus 23:43 says that your generations may know, right? This is when he's talking about the Feast of Booths and delivering this, that your generations may know that I made the people of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. For us, it would be really easy to read this and go that your generations may know that I made you camp while you wandered because I'm God. You know, almost the same way that I look at my kids sometimes and like, because I'm your father, you know, that kind of a moment. But that's not what's happening. What he's saying here is, remember, I want every generation to know That in all those years of wandering and all those years of struggle, when you hungered and you thirst, when you didn't know what was in front of you and you didn't know where to go, it was me leading you, me guiding you, me feeding you, me caring for you. Why? Because I am the Lord your God. I love you. I'm your God. You are my people. There's this relationship. I'm here. It is the very grace and love of God poured out on these people. I want you to settle in that. Once a year for 7 days, I want you to call all of that into the forefront, because that thing that was true then is true now. And I want it to let joy come inside of you, and I want it to be a celebration. Gratitude makes us aware of the grace of God. That's why it was a feast of celebration and not a downtrodden remembrance of the desert. What most of us would do, because we'd attach like, what this is about some kind of religious experience here, we'd be like, so that needs to be real serious and real somber the whole time. So what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to go reflect on all the years we wandered in the desert and all this. No, this is supposed to be a celebration of the goodness and the grace of God that people experience, so that they can infuse that energy and that goodness into their present moment when you need it. Because it's important. And this is really important, because as human beings, we are biologically wired to start turning our face, our eyes, our gaze away from grace. We just do this. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's because of this. As human beings, you are biologically wired to detect and avoid what you consider to be a threat and to pay a lot of attention to it. You just are. This isn't a bad thing, but it's true. Without realizing it, we are all scanning our environments actively for threats. It's why when you walk into a room and you're like, hey, there's a thing over there, don't trip on it. It's because you don't want to fall on your face and hurt yourself, and you want to know that that's true. And you know if you walk around staring at the sky, you're going to run into something. And so you've got to be on the lookout. You've got to be alert. This is also why when you open your refrigerators and you open the milk, you smell it first. Because at one point in time, that became a threatening moment for somebody, and nobody wants to die, right? And so now what do? Is this good milk? Is this bad milk? Is there mold on that? What's the expiration dates? Check the things, because we all want to stay safe and secure and not die. And so we scan for threats. We do this in conversations. We do this with people. We will scan rooms of people and be like, that looks like a hostile situation. I think I'll walk that direction. That conversation looks like it's going to get real crazy. I'm probably going to avoid it. And we do this all the time. Even when you walked into this room today to pick your seat, some of you did it out of habit, and some of you are like, what's the safest place in this room? And you found your seats. This is natural for us. We do this all the time. It helps you survive. It keeps you safe. That's why you're not drinking spoiled milk. It's nice to see you. But it's also a problem when it's left unchecked, because what happens is all we end up doing is focusing on all the threats and all the different things around us to such a degree that we lose sight of grace. We lose sight of God's favor for us. We lose sight of the goodness that He's infusing into our lives in the moment because of all the other things that we can see. This is why in the Israelite story in the Exodus, if you read through what happened with them as they're wandering in the desert, there's this pattern that you'll really quickly see where it's like, and then God showed up in this amazing way and declared that He's for them and that He's going to take care of them. And then the next day they were like, where are you and why have you abandoned us? It's because when you start to focus on all of those things, you start to forget. You start to lose sight of what that grace lived experience, that grace life is for you. This is why the Pharisees in the New Testament had become so concerned with not breaking the law because of the consequences attached to it that they forgot. They completely missed. They looked away from the fact that all of the law and all the prophets, all of the scriptures themselves are rooted and hang from the profound love of God for His people. And so things got sideways and weird and complicated. It's like us today. We find ourselves scanning the news and social media and every alert on our phone and every possible podcast and every possible thing and all the talk radio so that we can know absolutely every moment that a change occurred and something's going on so we can know how to deal with it. And what's out there, and what do we need to know, and how do we protect ourselves from the next thing? And have you found what starts to happen with that? Is that becomes all you start to see and all you start to talk about and all that starts to consume you? And while that stuff's real, there's just an honest truth that it gets really easy to lose sight of that beautiful expression of God's grace that's actually making its way all the time, always into your life. Because God hasn't left the building. Because His grace really is sufficient. Because He is omnipresent, because He is all-powerful, because He is everywhere and over all things and in all and through all. There's no place that God is not, meaning His grace is right there playing like a sweet melody in the background. Sometimes it's just a little soft and we've got to tune our radios to that station. But it's there because He doesn't leave. Friends, when it comes to gratitude, practicing gratitude is like learning to keep the dial tuned to that station in our lives. It's learning that every now and then I've got to tune in so that I can hear the goodness of what God has for me amidst all the other things that I need to focus on and care about too. Amidst all my complexity, amidst my year 2020, amidst the difficulties that I'm holding, it's not an abandonment of, it's not a denial of, it's not put your head like an ostrich in the sand and just avoid it. It's just saying every now and then what we need to do is make that practice, like the Israelites did once a week, 7-day celebration, and just tune that dial. Because the goodness is still there. And maybe it's just become the volume of a whisper, but it's there for you. A gift that opens you up in a way that makes it a little easier to take your next step, in a way that makes it a little easier for the grace of God to empower your life. It's really, really important. And that brings me to the second thing that gratitude does so that we can practice it. It's this: gratitude opens us back up to the experience of joy. This is so big. This is a really big deal. Gratitude opens us back up to the experience of joy. Leviticus 23, the end of verse 40 through 41. I'm going to emphasize some words as I read through this because I want you to hear it. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It is a statute forever throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. 3 times in this one little short section here. I listened to an interview from a Jewish rabbi where there was somebody interviewing him saying, look, we don't understand what the Feast of Booths is. Can you give us some insight on why you celebrate this and on what it is? Because, by the way, this is still celebrated to this day, right? If you're part of a Jewish community or know somebody or have Jewish neighbors or relatives or friends around you that practice, you'll see that during part of the year, they actually, in their homes most often these days, will set up a makeshift shelter. Sometimes it's done in cities on rooftops or in backyards. People don't live in it for 7 days anymore. Now they just tend to eat all of their meals and celebrate with people and invite friends and stuff in there. But this still happens for for a solid week. This still occurs. So they asked this rabbi, why do you celebrate this? What is this? And he goes, well, what you have to understand about the Feast of Booths is that this was characterized as the most joyous feast in the nation of Israel. Of all of the different feasts, joy was to be at the heart of this. Celebration was to be at the absolute heart of this. So much so that he said, if you go through this thing and you don't experience joy, you're doing it wrong. Like, it's at its core. And I love this because the interviewer then, who clearly didn't like camping, said to him, all right, but part of the way that you construct these things is that you don't make a sealed tent. So one of the conditions on making one of these booths was that you had to be able to see through the roof. You needed to be able to see the sky through the roof. You couldn't completely seal it off. Really beautiful reason, by the way. The purpose and intention behind that is so that you would always be aware that no matter what you have, no matter what you're under, no matter what's been provided, that we are all under the grand umbrella of God's goodness and grace. So that you would always be reminded this whole thing is actually His. Really powerful. It's good. But the guy's like, so you don't seal up the roof. What happens when it rains and you're out there eating with people and it's this party and what do you do? And the rabbi, without skipping a beat, says, you go inside. And I thought that was so interesting because you know what I thought you would do? I go, no, you obey. And you sit in the thing and you reflect on the fact that even when it's cold and I'm suffering, at least I have this meal and at least and he's like, no, and that's not what you would do. What he said was, no, if you can't enjoy it, if you're missing the celebration, then you're missing the point. Go inside where you can keep rejoicing. Go inside where you can keep celebrating. That's the heart of the thing. That's why we do what we do. And I loved it. And I found myself thinking, man, this is so good. There's a part of what God has done with gratitude. Once a year, I want us to center back in on that. Once a year, I want us to celebrate, not just by ourselves as some private discipline, but with others, to open our lives and our households and things up, that we might revel in all the goodness and the grace that God's shown the people over those 40 years of wandering, that it might become something powerful in our lives right here and right now. That same power, that same grace, that same goodness is here for us. And that the expression of it wouldn't be like, yes, burden. But would be what? Rejoice, celebrate, because the honesty of this is when you find yourself in a genuine experience of gratitude, it starts to open you back up for the genuine experience of joy. It's what happens. Even in dark times, even in hard moments, especially in dark times, especially in hard moments, especially when things are tough, it is so important. I found myself the first year of our marriage in this weird moment. It was Christmas time. And Amber and I are so excited. We were dirt poor. I think our combined income was 20 grand a year, and we lived in the middle of downtown Chicago. That doesn't work quite right, but for somehow we worked that out. We made that work, and we were there. We lived in this tiny little 500 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment, and it was Christmas time, and it was our first Christmas, and we were so excited just to do Christmas together. We were away from all family, so you're trying to make your own traditions and all of that stuff. And we'd gotten a phone call a couple weeks before from a family friend saying, hey, my daughter is going to have an internship at a restaurant. Would you care if she came and stayed with you? And we said, no, that'd be awesome. So for the last 2 weeks, this girl had been staying with us, sleeping on our couch in our living room and then doing her internship at this restaurant. Now, the very last night of her internship happened to be the night before Christmas Eve. And so she said, hey, I'm going to stay out with these guys because, it's my last night with them and I just want to close out with friends and everything else. We said, cool, we'll take you to the airport in the morning, whatever. And so we all went to bed. So my wife and I are sleeping, and all of a sudden I hear crazy noise and chaos, and I wake up and I walk out, and apparently this young lady had drank so much red wine, wherever she was, that she got really, really sick. And she had begun vomiting all over our 500 square foot tiny little apartment. And she's sleeping on her couch. The one thing we had in our couch, see, everything we gotten was like a hand-me-down. Somebody had basically been like, hey, we're moving and donating all this to Goodwill. And we're like, don't, we'll take it. And so our whole house was like somebody else's old furniture with one exception. And it's that my parents for Christmas that year bought us a brand new couch. They bought us this couch. It was a white leather couch, and it had no cushions. It was a unibody-like couch. And this girl is sleeping on it, and she's throwing up all over the new couch. And it's just soaking down into the cracks of the thing. And then she gets up because she's sick, and she wanders over to our other furniture and she throws up on it. And she wanders over the other thing and she throws up on it. And it's red wine, guys. This is like staining, nasty throw up. If you're grossed out, me too. And then she goes into the bathroom, and instead of throwing up in the toilet, throws up all over all of our bathroom mats, and then grabs a towel to clean the whole thing up and uses all of our bathroom towels. And it was like a force of destruction went through the entire place. And I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna clean up. My wife at one point walks up and looks out of the bedroom and is like, what's going on out here? And I was like, why don't you just go back in there? Well, you'll be okay. Merry Christmas. And I took her to the airport. When I came back from the airport, I open the door to our apartment and I look inside, and my wife is on our new couch, and you can't take the cushions out. So her arm is plugged deep into the couch, and she's just scooping out whatever needed to be taken out of that moment. And she is so mad. Because you would be, right? This is awful. And so we spent the day throwing away most of our things that we couldn't end up cleaning, and getting rid of all of our bathroom stuff, and stuffing dryer sheets into our couch and Febreze and trying to spray things. And it's the middle of December in Chicago, and we lived on the 6th floor, and we have our windows wide open, and it is 12 degrees outside, but we just need air to air this place out. And this was our first Christmas together. We had saved up some money to buy some Alaskan king crab to make a nice dinner with each other. And I will never forget, we were sitting on the floor because there wasn't anything left, with this little table and crab legs on it, just staring at each other with the windows wide open in our jackets. It was awful. It was the worst. And it was just like this frustrating moment. And I remember at one point I just finally look at my wife, and she looks at me, and we're just staring at each other exhausted. And I just started laughing. And I remember distinctly in that moment thinking, God, I'm so thankful that king crab tastes so good, because this is hard. And God, I'm thankful for my wife, and that I at least get to navigate this crazy moment with her. And I'm thankful that we have a place to stay this Christmas, and that we're here. I did, and I just started laughing, and she started laughing, and we found ourselves in some bizarre way able to sit in a vomit-stenched house with half of our stuff thrown away, enjoying one another and saying Merry Christmas with full joy and authenticity in our hearts. That shouldn't happen, but it did. Gratitude has this powerful way of reaching into the moments you don't think it can make its way into and opening you up, friends. And I say this to you today because the honest truth is, and I know this for many of you, if I were to ask you, when was the last time you could honestly say, I feel genuine joy? It'd be a tough question. And I know that for some of you, if you were to be walking down the street and somebody you really know saw you and said, hey, how are you? You'd have a really hard time being able to navigate and say, I feel joyful. You wouldn't say it that way, but the honesty of it, because it's been a year. And it's been a season, some more and less for different people, and I get all of that. In a year like this year, with the complexity that we all as a people have collectively navigated, how important is it that we pause, let those little moments of gratitude into our lives, not ignore the complexity, but with both hands, hold the complexity in one and then look and say, and yet the grace of God is still here. The goodness of God is still here. And let it minister to you. Let it become grace unto you. And let it open you back up so that the experience of genuine joy is actually there. I want to get to December, friends, and sing Joy to the World for real. That starts with us. God's still here. Despite all you've walked through this last year, despite all that you faced, he didn't leave the building. He's in your homes. He's in your lives. He's with you where you go. He is within you. The Holy Spirit dwells within you. Christ is with you. The love of God is there for you. It's here. So what would happen if we just started to practice it a little bit? What would happen if we opened ourselves up to it? What would it do for you? You might just find that Thanksgiving isn't just making its way to you in 2 weeks, but that you actually start to make your way towards Thanksgiving. I know I've taken a little bit of time, but I don't want to leave you without a couple ways to practice this. So what I'm going to do here is just to close out, I want to give you 4 ways to practice this. This could take on a whole bunch of different forms. Some of us could find ourselves going, I really gel with that one, and I'm going to do that. Some of us might say, I'm going to do all 4, whatever. The point of it is, whatever that step is for you to allow that practice to occur, to open you, it's the gift. It's not about being a better human. This is for you. This is for your life, because your life is a precious gift, friends. And so here's the first one. It's this. Have a gratitude journal. I don't like journaling. It's not generally what I do, but I found this to be really, really helpful and really, really impactful in my own life over time. Whether it's once a day, once a week, whatever the right frequency is, take a moment to sit down and literally just write the things that you're genuinely grateful for. Not the things you have to be grateful for, right? But that genuinely, that you reflect on, you're like, no, I genuinely am grateful that that's in my life. I'm genuinely grateful that I've experienced this, and write those things down. What I promise you're doing already is journaling those other things in your head about all the things that you're frustrated about or that you wish were gone. We spent a lot of time with that. What would happen if you actually started to journal this? I can tell you, I've watched it happen a ton of times, is it starts to open you back up. It starts to impact your life. Or here's the second one. Give voice to your gratitude. Give voice to your gratitude. A lot of us think some of these things and we never say it. What would happen if when you encountered somebody, you found yourself saying, I'm so thankful for you. Can I tell you how thankful I am that God used you this way in my life? Can I tell you how thankful I am for the way you do this? You'll find that that blesses people. Or say it to God. Audibly say it out loud to God. God, I am so thankful for the way that you unconditionally love me, even in the moments where I struggle to love myself. God, you are profoundly powerful. Say it to him. Don't shout it out loud in the grocery store. That'll get kind of weird, but find the right place, but say it out loud. Number 3, meditate on God's goodness. Here's the truth. I know that some of you are going to look at life and go, Ryan, I tried. I surveyed my life, and I'm just having a really hard time finding the thing that I'm going to be grateful for. That's okay. You don't need to beat yourself up on that. If you can't see gratitude around you, then pause to reflect on the goodness of God that you know is there. Pause to reflect on the things that you love about God already, and let your gratitude rest with him. Let it be a place that starts to open you back up, so that my hope is that you find yourself able to see some of those moments in your life. Start there. The last one. Express gratitude tangibly. Some of us are really good with our words. Some of us are not. Some of us express things through our actions. I love those moments when somebody's able to say, you know what? My spouse or my kids or whoever's been working really, really hard, so I made them this dinner, or I cleaned this thing, or I took them on this moment because I wanted them to know how thankful I am for them. I want them to know that I see them and I'm grateful, right? There's these moments where we actually do things that express gratitude in profound ways. If that's you, take that step. Express gratitude tangibly, however it is for you. The point is this. In the end, friends, may this be something that we return to in practice. God's created it in a way that it's good for our lives, in fact, important for our lives. It opens us back up. I hope that you find yourself experiencing in whatever bit is there for you, the beautiful grace of God that is being poured out on you in your life even still. And that in some way, shape, or form, as we move towards Thanksgiving, that you find yourself opening up to the joy that is there before you as we close out 2020, holding all that complexity and all that stuff at the same time. Yeah, let's do this together. Let's pray. God, we come before you, and I admit that there's a lot of complexity around this. I know that it's kind of weird in this particular year, God, to talk about gratitude, Lord, but I also, Lord, I pray that you open our eyes to it, our hearts to it, and that you infuse that goodness into our lives. God, some of us in here haven't felt joy in a long time, and God, I pray that there's a path there, that we be able to see your goodness and the way that you work in our lives, Father, that we be able to see your love and your power and your strength, even amidst our complexity and our hardship, that we be an encouragement to one another. God, open us up to that. Open our eyes to see how we can encourage and show gratitude to other people. But above all, Lord, knit us together in a beautiful way, that we would be an expression of you. We love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name, amen. Friends, it's good to see you today. I hope to see you soon.